Good evening, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for November 19th, 2013. Announcement, this meeting is being recorded, and we'd like to take a moment of appreciation for our brave servicemen and women that are serving in Afghanistan. Thank you. We will go into executive session at the close of our meeting to discuss the acquisition of the Kenny property and threatened litigation, and we will not reconvene in open session.
Also the state hospital.
And also, we will also meet jointly with the Medfield State Hospital Negotiating Committee in executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations for the proposed purchase of the state hospital property, and will not reconvene into open session. The appointment that we had originally scheduled at 7:15 regarding the Clark Tavern has been postponed. So the only other appointment we've got on the agenda tonight is at 7:35. We've got the Historical Commission Co-Chairman David Temple will be in to present a preservation award. I guess looking at action items, first up we've got is ongoing discussion on Selectmen's goals. And I know we had put that on the agenda to kind of give ourselves an update and stuff like that. Richard, did you have some comments on that or anything, or Pete?
I just had a couple. I think and Mike did a nice job in the beginning setting up the different committees and boards and stuff that come before us. And this idea of the fourth Tuesday of the month as well. We're going to continue with that as we get...
Yeah.
Because there's a couple, and this ties into the goals of meeting with all the different committees. I think originally we had the Park and Recreation, the Conservation, Open Space, and something came up that we postponed them. So I think we need to try to get them back. They haven't been in yet.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're also missing, we haven't seen the Board of Health yet, Housing Authority, Affordable Housing, and Council of Aging. So,
okay, I thought we had the Council of Aging, and maybe it was on something else. They were here, and they talked about what they were doing.
Yeah,
like Roberta and Ron Griffin.
Yeah, I think that was the veteran agent.
We also we're going to have the Insurance Advisory Committee and the OPEB report, but the OPEB consultant wanted, I don't know, $275 an hour to come and talk to us or something. So
I might want to pass on that.
But we'll get the Insurance Advisory Committee, and I'll give you an update on the OPEB report. Incidentally, it is on the agenda, but Saturday morning I'm giving a training session for the Finance Committee members. If any of you are interested in attending, it'll be roughly 8 to 10.
Okay, great.
What time does it start, Mike?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Can I maybe suggest, because he's brand new, the new superintendent, maybe be invited to let him know about that? I wonder if that'd be interesting to him to see.
Sure, yeah, I'll be glad to, yeah. I'm sure he's got nothing better to do on a Saturday morning with his schedule.
I know.
And that is a workshop, which is now a non-meeting under the open meeting law, so.
Okay.
Oh, it is, wow.
I'm sorry, it's a non-meeting?
Right.
Oh.
And then one of our goals was to develop cooperation with all town boards and trying to have building maintenance under one leadership position. Do we work with the schools now? Does the school have their own? And
yes, we work with them. Well, they have a facilities manager and Alan Peterson, and we've worked with him, and he's been very helpful to us in a variety of situations. I've talked to Charlie Kellner about going further on that, because we now have, the library, town hall, the town garage will have, and then potentially the public safety building. And there's a lot of technology in those buildings that really need somebody that can keep up with it and knows what they're doing more than I do by the seat of the pants, and the library director and the chiefs. And so we've talked about possibly combining, similar to what we did with the information technology. The school, we started out with the schools contributing part of the salary of the information technology director. And we gradually increased that. And then as the schools expanded into the hundreds of computers, they felt they needed a full-time person in the IT end. So what we did is we hired an IT person and actually last year we set up a separate IT budget so that we worked together with the schools on IT, and it would probably potentially be the same with the facilities management department. We'd work cooperatively because they actually have a bigger staff. I think they have 2 maintenance people in addition to the facilities manager.
So I know, listening to the library director and others, it sounds like they were spending a lot of time. They just did some work with the ventilation system and things like that, which
Yeah.
really is not what a librarian should be doing.
No.
Um,
And it's the same, with the police chief and fire chief, when you look at what's going in the building in terms of IT equipment, security equipment. Even here, you got elevator contracts and HVAC process equipment, and, I'm trying to get the doors fixed, and that's a pain in the neck trying to get somebody to do that. We've got to, you have to go get somebody to replace the shingles, they keep getting blown off the roof.
So we don't have, a town side of a maintenance person that is in charge of all town buildings and stuff. Is that something other towns do when you meet with the other?
Depends on the size and the scope. And generally, it's, if the town has a big diversified tax base, yeah, they will have something like that. If the town is primarily residential, then you kind of do the best you can. But I think we're getting to the point with all these new buildings, it's penny wise and pound foolish not to have someone maintaining the equipment, because in the long run it catches up with you. So. And there are several things. When I took a look at your list, some of these things are, Chris will do them more than I will, so I didn't put them in here. And some of them are ongoing things that we should be doing all the time anyway, rather than specific projects for the year ahead. When we've reviewed some of the goals of other town administrators, some will have 2 or 3 goals, others have pages of goals, and I think you have to be realistic as to what you can accomplish and recognize that there's a lot of other things you're going to be doing in the course of a year.
No, I agree.
I just look at today and this week, and it's meeting after meeting after meeting. But it's these are things that we really need to get going on. I know 5 and 6, the Warrant Committee's been very interested in that aspect of it.
No.
We can address that at town meeting.
No, I mean, I think if you can accomplish these things, I think you've really done quite well, because there's a lot on your plate, besides just all the day-to-day stuff that comes up. I mean, really getting a lot of these things done it'll be quite a successful year, really, I think about it, getting things done. Yeah. I really do,
One of the goals we had was to create this 3-year financial forecast. Maybe we should have mentioned that when we had, I had forgotten about that, when we had the different departments in the other day, to see if each department can also begin to look, a little bit down the road when they are looking at their budgets, not just the current year, but.
The trouble with the financial forecasting, it's very easy in a sense, because we're so limited in what the revenues we can raise by state control. We get about 1.1 million a year, and that goes up slightly because the 2.5 becomes part of the base. And then it depends on what your levy exclusions are. The local receipts have been staying quite level. In fact, they've been dropping somewhat because of the interest earnings have been so low. And there's not a lot. Everything you go to do, it becomes taxation. Financial forecasting is very easy. I'd just say you add 5% a year, and that's basically what
Or
you're.
2.5% maybe.
Well, you get new growth and presumably a little bit increase in state aid. So it's probably close to the 2.5. The assessors have put together a 30-year tax rate chart they have on their website, and it's very enlightening in terms of what's been happening with the expenditures. It goes back to, I think, 1975.
I think you're right, though. Think about, because we'd always talked about, like the department heads starting to do more planning and stuff like that. But you're right, they certainly could always work on, or maybe working through the Warrant Committee, And I think they do anyways informally, kind of talk about what's coming up. And I know the capital budget committee, they always kind of know what's coming up in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But have some of those items there.
I think what Willis Pelagian has been doing in terms of the Water and Sewer Board is the way to go now.
Yeah.
It's more appropriate to the enterprise fund because they have more flexibility in terms of raising revenues. They have a variety of things they can charge fees for. They can
Right.
adjust their rates based on the capital needs of the departments or the enterprise funds. So it makes more sense there. I think there are some things we can learn from that process and
Yeah.
carry over to the town budgets.
Yeah.
But there's not nearly the flexibility on the operating budget side that you
No.
do.
I mean, you're right. I mean, basically, they're either flat or they go up a little bit, or some years you ask them to cut back. I mean, and that's their operating budget. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
anything, you know.
Yeah.
Because they're not, you know, they're
And-
not selling something or creating a new product, and they're not, you know, doing stuff like that.
And of
Yeah.
course, the last 5 or 6 years, we've been in somewhat of a recession, and if
Yeah.
you look at that chart the assessor put together, you can see the impact of that.
Yeah.
And the increases have been going down, the tax rate increases. If you look back into the, 10 years ago, they were 7 or 8% increases. Now we're down to, 1 to 4% range, so it has been
Yeah.
dropping.
Another part of that we had suggested in terms of long-range planning was to ask the department heads to put together 5-year forecasts
Yeah.
of what their goals are for the next short period of time. And we didn't explain that to them either.
No.
But we can share those things with people.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, and I think when they come in, that's a good opportunity for you to
Yeah,
sit
that's
down
probably a
and
good
find
idea,
out
yeah.
just where they're going.
Yeah.
And we've actually accomplished a lot of that, in terms of these capital projects that
Yeah.
we've been doing. I think, the 2 big ones after the public safety, we've got to take a look at Park and Rec, and you got
Yeah.
to take a look at the schools.
Schools,
That's where
yeah.
the
Yeah.
big thrust is going to be in
Yeah.
terms of finances.
Yeah.
And by getting these projects, the Public Works and Public Safety under our belts, we can suggest those, so when it comes time to do something about the FAF Center in Dale Street, you can have the financial wherewithal to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's good. That's very good.
that's what's good about Medfield. I think people recognize if you want to keep things up, you got to spend money, and it hurts to raise taxes, but it's if you do it, in the long run, you're better off.
Mike, one of the other things that you and I have talked about over the past year or so is the idea of perhaps having a business person on the town side, the way the schools do. I had broached that at one point with Charlie Kellner as to whether or not we could combine, because you had suggested that we might make sense to have a combined school-town business office
Yeah.
type of setup, and when I suggested that to Charlie Kellner, he retracted in horror at the fact that he had any extra free time to run the town in
Yeah.
addition to the
Yeah,
schools.
oh,
But you'd
I-
have to give him more staff, obviously.
And I think the level of cooperation between the town and the school is very good. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of payroll, in terms of vendor warrants, they get along quite well. They work together quite cooperatively. So there's a lot that has been done to streamline operations. And we're very lucky in that sense. There are some towns where never the twain shall meet. The towns and the schools don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of towns where the assessors and the tax collector don't talk to each other, or the treasurer and the accountant don't talk.
Exactly. That's stuff like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Turn all
we're
done,
so
yeah.
lucky that our department heads do work together.
Yeah.
Do you know of any towns that have the system like Pete was mentioning, where there's one business person for
A
all?
lot of them have not town and school. The reporting requirements for the town for the schools are quite distinct, because they report to the Department of Education.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to integrate our accounting system with the state's accounting system. We're under a uniform, the UMass system or whatever, and they're under the Department of Education system. And they don't talk to each other, so we've been trying to cross-hatch
Mhm.
the account numbers so that when you
Yeah.
need a report for the town side,
Yeah.
you can include the school stuff in it. When you need a report for the Department of Education, you've got the numbers coded from the invoices. The accountant's invoices to pick up that information without having to go through and pull it all out. But it's a difficult process. They were going to try to do it as last July, and I think they're aiming for next July to try to get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it certainly makes sense, the more we can integrate, and if we're integrating the IT and the building maintenance facilities, if we could try to integrate the business office part of it as well, I think that'd be great.
Yes, well, we can tell you, you got to give the new superintendent a little time to get on his feet and figure out how he wants to handle things,
Yeah.
but that's certainly worth looking at. I think
Yeah.
it's, and you're right, the more we can tie those things together, the better, because it allows us to keep up without hiring new staff.
Yeah, well, and there's some areas where the schools are just so much larger than the town we can kind of piggyback on their personnel and yet not have the
Yes.
thing go by the boards, because we don't
Mhm.
have enough work for.
Better not say that too
Full-time
loud,
person.
you're getting in trouble.
Yeah, that'd be good. Like I said, Charlie's got some free time. I'm sure we can get him to help out.
Yes.
Good thing he doesn't watch our
So, yeah.
shows.
The other goal we had, I think we're going to address tonight, was the issue of the bylaws tied into the state hospital. With
Mhm.
I think that's on the agenda.
Yep.
That's one of our goals, was there also.
You do have a few minutes if you want to do that now, or please, yeah.
Can I just ask one other thing that I've been sort of thinking about for years, and maybe mentioning it occasionally, Mike? And one of my concerns is that you're such an expert on the budget process, that I always get worried what would happen to the town if you got hit by a truck, and we had to figure out the budget process without you. So that, I guess what I'm hoping is that maybe this year, that you could take a calendar, and as you go through the budget process, you could just start to list
Thanks.
what you do on each
Each
date
day.
or each week, or so that, and then we could maybe tie that into the annual selectmen's calendar as to different tasks that need to get done by the town administrator during the year. And I think that would make a nice integrated document for
Sure.
maybe how to
And,
how to
and
do the-
Evelyn and Chris do a lot too. I don't know if you realize, they put together the whole warrant report. That goes camera ready to the printer.
Yeah.
They do the same with the town report. Those used to be put out, we would just send the material and the copy, and they'd
and they put it together.
organize it up, but
Yeah.
they do it all now. It's
Yeah,
Well,
well, maybe
that's
that's the
all.
sort of information that we could put in as well.
what the
Evelyn.
deadlines, yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and there are a lot of deadlines, in terms of when you have to get the budgets in to give them time to review it, when you
Mhm.
get the capital budgets in, when you get the warrant to the printer.
I mean, it'd be a
all those
wonderful
things.
gift to those that are going to come later in the town, as to if we could leave them a manual as to how to do the town budget every year.
In case I don't want to stay for another 100 years.
Right. Right.
Okay.
All right.
I'll try to work on that.
So do we want to take a few minutes maybe and chat with Mark a little bit about the bylaws and committee and stuff like that, and kind of give you an update on that,
Sure.
at the state hospital?
I mean, I can start.
Okay.
The original genesis of the idea was that there were going to be such large changes or development at the state hospital that it would behoove the town to review what we already had in place and to see what we might want to add in terms of controls and bylaws. Do the fire chief and the police chief want to know when asbestos is moving through town, that sort of thing. And it seemed to make sense that we would then look at all, it grew into a much larger thing in terms of becoming a charter review and a bylaw committee that was looking at all the town bylaws and doing that codification. But the original genesis of it was really just to try to get some things in place for things like the state hospital or the big development down on West Street, the 40B project, that, whatever it's called, Gatehouse, is it, or?
Well, that's the development.
It's the park at
Woods,
Medfield, I
Medfield
believe.
Woods, they keep Medfield as
The
a...
park, they
No,
call it
it's
the
a
park.
park.
You're right, the
Park
park
Medfield.
with a C,
But I
Yeah.
think it's, isn't it Gatehouse that it's the developer?
Yes, yeah.
yes.
And that, I mean, that's a large enough,
40Bs almost don't matter because they simply, if if they feel it's
Well-
uneconomical, they simply put it on the list to be waived, so.
But I mean, we're getting a large enough project that I think it behooves us to,
Right.
well, I think that was part of the thinking, that those two large projects on the horizon made it make sense for the town to look at what we have and what we should perhaps have that we don't have.
And some of these things, I think, are covered under state law, state code. They might not be listed in our town, but it's.
Well,
under-
you alluded to asbestos a minute ago, that's governed by DEP, so, I had brought up with you during my annual presentations for a number of years, my recommendations to review the bylaws of the town. The state hospital may well be the precipitating event, but there is a need to look at it. And there is obviously a legal component, what's legal, what's not, what are the parameters. That being said, there's a whole lot of public policy that goes into it, which is why the Citizens Committee that was appointed, I was optimistic was going to be able to make progress. I did meet with them. I indicated what I considered to be priorities, was not asked to meet with them again, and so here we are. But it's to be perfectly honest, I can provide guidance and input, but it's not something, it's not appropriate for me, in my opinion, to take the ball and run with it, so to speak. If you told me, for instance, or we had a meeting and it was determined that we needed a particular type of bylaw, I can provide some samples, but then it has to be tailored to the community, because they're not one size fits all. There may be something that works really well in Franklin, you don't want any part of it here, or it needs to be modified to Medfield circumstances. So that's, I'm here as a resource.
Yeah.
And it's how you go about it, and whether you set up another kind of committee or try to do it internally by bringing the, if you will, the staff from the town hall, the department heads or whatever together, the ones that deal with these issues, like the fire chief, the police chief, the building commissioner, perhaps one selectman, Mike or Chris, and then go through it that way. And at least by the time we come to make a presentment, there's been some consensus that this is something we need and it works for Medfield, as opposed to simply me saying, here's a bylaw,
Yeah.
go enact it. Because that's not going to work.
I
There's a
think
big,
that's what Christine was suggesting when she said internally. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the guidance. She thought it'd be internally, and would lean on you with that.
Well, it's interesting, I was talking to the fire chief and the building inspector recently, and talking about the stretch code and the green communities legislation and all the things that are coming down the road in terms of either energy or building codes. And there's a lot there, but generally those are controlled by the state. And we can have them a little more stringent, but they dictate. When you get to the beavers tonight and realize how ridiculously detailed the state is in governing how we capture beavers, then you wonder why we get frustrated. And it's a lot of these things that we deal with are already covered in state statutes.
But there might be a lot of areas, Mike, with, just for instance, notice requirements to the different town departments, such as the asbestos moving through town, notice to the police and the fire. I mean, they may well want to know about that, or the town hall might want to have notice of certain.
well, I mean,
items
if
and
you
stuff
move
like that.
hazardous material, the state regulations as to how it be moved, it has to be essentially it's like treated like nuclear waste. It's in contained containers, and
And do those always provide notice to the town that it's going on,
that
or?
I'm aware of.
No, I
Yeah,
don't-
well, so that's it.
I mean,
you
in
have some
other
bylaws
towns,
that
they
say-
simply, they're under state jurisdiction, they have to comply, there's a way that it has to be transported in secure containers, and it's taken to a out-of-state dump site that accepts this type of material,
Yeah,
so.
But I think that the town may well want to have notice of that type of thing. I mean, I think
I
this
don't,
is
I
something for
don't
the
think the
department
railroads
heads
will
to-
give you notice. I think
Well, the
they-
railroads,
they
you
just
wouldn't know
ignore
what's,
it,
you
yeah.
just, if you want an interesting exercise, and we've got a couple a day going through now, just sit there and watch the freighters going through and imagine what could be in some of those.
Yeah.
I used to see all kinds of colored substances on the railroad track when I'd go out running near my house, and it was just,
And that is entirely under the jurisdiction of an obscure federal board called the Federal Surface Transportation Board.
yeah.
It's out of Washington. No community has any say what comes through on a
And
railroad.
those spills, of course, were in our aquifer zone.
But as far as what you do have authority to do, one of the big ones is stormwater management, which is actually something that the town's worked on again, on again, for the time of my whole tenure as town council. And in fact, is something that you're supposed to have in place under EPA
Federal law.
guidelines right now.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. That deals with pre-construction, during construction, and post-construction, if you do it right.
Mhm.
And it picks up and leaves off, we're over and beyond what conservation has for jurisdiction now.
Yeah.
Again, that's something, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, there's prototypes that are being used in various communities, including Franklin.
I think in those regards, we're kind of ahead of the curve because for years, we've had stormwater management bylaws. We've also cleaned our catch basins annually.
Well, this
We
goes,
sweep
this
our
goes for
streets
development and what has to be
Yeah.
done for, if you're gonna
on
disturb more.
site.
Right,
Yeah, on site. Well, that's both
right.
federal law, state law, and local law.
So if you're
all
gonna
require
disturb
that.
more than an
Yeah.
acre,
Yep.
then as a developer, and obviously if you're talking the state hospital, that's gonna be that type of development,
Yeah.
then you have to comply with the regulation already in place and fairly detailed.
There were a number of bylaws that other towns that had hospital developments enacted because of the hospital developments, and I think we might want to take a look at those and see if there's anything in those that we would think that is appropriate for Medfield.
Yeah, I think Bill Massaro had collected a
Yeah,
lot
he had
of
collected a
information
lot of
on
those.
this in the different hospitals,
Well, then-
and it varies from bylaws
So-
that thick to bylaws that thin,
So,
depending on the community.
As a way to proceed then, should we just task the town administration with the task of somehow internally generating this? And
Well, I don't know, what about our bylaw study committee as far as where do they stand with things and stuff like that, so I don't know.
You know, I
don't
think
know. I mean, we
probably
can-
it would make sense to get the bylaw and charter review committee and also the planning board, because a lot of these things come under the planning
Planning
board,
board.
either through
Good,
zoning
yeah.
or subdivision rules and regulations.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that are going to be, probably, if you adopt them, will be adopted either as a zoning bylaw provision or a subdivision rules and regulations provision.
But the other thing, I attended a couple of the meetings of the bylaw review committee, and I think the impression I got with them is that they're an overload, and that to add the hospital component is beyond what they think they can do.
Yeah, they've got a core group now of about 5 people,
Yep.
which tells you that's about the size you want these committees when you appoint them, because that's about what you end up with.
No more than 7.
Yeah, but,
Well, I guess we should maybe have a follow-up, we've got to keep moving along anyways in a few minutes, but maybe we need to have a follow-up meeting with them or something to see. I mean, offhand, I don't think we'd be wasting our time to say, okay, Mike and Christine, you go ahead and whip through and coordinate all these bylaws, because that's not going to happen, because you've got too many operational things to try to keep going, day to day with the town.
well, we don't know,
you
for instance, what the Board of Health feels they need, or
Right.
what the building department feels they need. I think you gotta,
If you're looking at lead time, you're talking for the annual town meeting, the warrant opening in January and closing by the end of the month or early February, it's already
Oh, it's.
beyond
Oh,
the,
definitely, yeah.
the, the
Yeah.
window of opportunity, even getting done for an annual for this year,
Right.
so. But you need to put people, if you want to do that, you need to get people working on it now.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot, I'm used to working in Franklin with what's called the technical staff. It's the in-house staff, the planners and the chiefs and
Yeah.
building commissioner and all, and we've done some really good work on doing some very comprehensive zoning rewrites over there for site plan processes, for instance. We just created a whole new zoning district under the gun in response to a proposed development. So a total rewrite of the town's sign bylaw. So that
there-
works.
Yeah, but their town hall staff is probably 2 or 3 times the size of ours.
It's, there's a couple more people here and there. You've got Sarah, and we've got 2 people in Franklin, but it could be, if that were the group tasked with it, it's doable that way. But the point is, it makes no sense at all for people to take a whole lot of time working stuff out, only to bring it to the political arm, who then says, no, we don't want this, or we don't need
Right.
this, or whatever. Then, so there's got to be communication, ongoing communication,
Yeah, with the public.
or
yeah.
direction, or what have you.
Mr. Chairman, before Bill leaves here, I know he's been on this from the very beginning. I just wonder your feelings and your views of from your opinion, where this should go.
Could you use a microphone, Bill, please?
I agree with Mike and Mark about the fact that there are state laws here. The only thing that got me started on this was in reviewing the contracts that DECAM had for their work up at the hospital, whether it was demolition of a building like the Clark building, or whether it was removal of some material out of the salvage yard or whatever. Several of their clauses called for things like notification, called for things like start work and stop work times and everything else. And they always had the statement in accordance with federal, state, and local laws. And of course, the first question that I raised was, well, do we have any local laws about this? And if we don't, do we want them, or do we not want them? And so I came up with a list of the items, first from DECAM's contracts, since they were certainly going to be pertinent to us in terms of what demolition activities would be going on at some stage in the town. And then the second thing I did was look at, as Pete said, looked at some of the other towns like Danvers and Lexington, where there were major hospital
Right.
renovations. And I looked at the bylaws that they enacted after the development started.
Right.
And my thought was, well, if they found out in their development process that they needed these bylaws, maybe we could get a head start and start looking at what we might need, because we know something is going to go up at the hospital. So I came up with a list of several items. Some of them were silly, but I just put them up there for references, like how many pets you can have or whatever. Some of them I thought were interesting. There were requirements for taxi cabs, and how did you license a taxi cab, which is something that came up here about 3 or 4 months ago. And given that we're going to have possibly over on West Street people who will need transportation and everything else, we don't have any existing laws like that right now, or regulations. There's I think a simple example of something that we might look at. In terms of what I think we need to do, I came up with a list that I thought we should have the police look at, the fire look at, we should have the building inspector look at, whoever was in charge of things, and make a decision, and go on a record to say, we don't need this. Now, I brought this up to the bylaw review committee, and what actually came out of their activity at the moment now is we're doing a codification of all of the existing bylaws that were put into a book by the subcontractor that was hired about a year ago or so.
Yeah.
And they're also collecting the existing regulations. And that was, I think, the biggest problem. There was no place where all of the existing regulations for the boards and agencies in the town
In one
were
place.
down. Some of them were, some of them weren't. So they started a collection effort to pull those in. The company that is doing the codification, it will put together those existing rules and regulations from the departments, but they will not advise, they will not say, this one over here is in conflict with this one on page 27 or whatever. But they are doing that for the regular codification. But for the existing rules and regulations that they're collecting from departments, they're just compiling them, just putting them together. So I think the first thing is we need to know what we already have.
Right.
All All right, and from there, I mean, that's not to say we could not look at some of the suggestions that I made that said, do we want this? Do we want to look at start work times and stop work times, whatever? I know from having attended hearings at other towns where developments are going on, that the towns have a big problem with start and work stuff, particularly on 40B projects, by the way.
Mhm.
So do we need to do that? We need to look at enforcement. I mean, I heard the chief say several times that, yes, we have this rule and regulation, but I can't enforce it. We need to look at how we enforce these kinds of things. It's a big job, but it can be done in tiny pieces, I think. Pick a place to start and you can do it.
Yeah.
Well, also, what you need to do is prioritize the work, and you also need to know what tying in with the enforcement. For instance, anything you can tie in to the building inspector's authority, and he wears two hats. He wears a hat enforcing state law, and he also wears a hat enforcing, to some degree, local law.
Mhm.
If you can tie something into withholding a building permit or a certificate of occupancy, then you've got some real clout, as opposed to the kinds of things we have to go out and issue a fine or try to drag them. The worst case scenario is have to try to drag them to the Rentham District, the Dedham District Court to enforce, because the district courts just have a very bad attitude when it comes to enforcing local bylaws. So, to the extent you can, to some degree, exercise self-help, that's the strongest position you can be in. So, I don't disagree with what
Right.
Bill's saying.
Well, like I said, I think maybe if we could, at some point, get together with the committee again somehow, or at least a couple of the members, and kind of get an update where they're at, and then we can kind of figure out
Yeah.
how we can tackle this really
I'm
hard
gonna talk to Russ
thing.
Hallisey and see if he thinks when they'd be ready to come in and make a
Yeah, so we can try to figure out how that
presentation,
get.
and
Yeah,
then see if we
we're-
get the planning board. I know there's a couple of members that are on the planning board that
Right.
are,
Yeah, so that would be good, at
or
least
former planning board members that are on the bylaw committee, so.
to try to get it moving forward a little bit. It's a hard thing. Okay, good. All righty, that's great. What we'd like to, David Temple is here, and our appointment 7:35. Sorry, we're a few minutes late there, but you're here to present an award, so the podium is yours, David.
For the benefit of those in both of them in television land.
Yeah.
I'm David Temple, co-chair of the Medfield Historical Commission. Dan Bible, the other co-chair, hurt his back and has been taking it easy for the last week or so. We're here to present a Historic Preservation Award tonight to an honor a builder who's made Hale Place look great. Let me introduce the members of the commission. Charles Navratil, Sarah Murphy, Ansel and Wolf, Maria Baylor. Dan Bible is missing. John Day is also on it. And who else?
Associate.
Yeah. Oh, we have associate members, Doug Teeney and Cheryl O'Malley, who do a lot of good work for us as well. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and our basic job is to help protect Medfield's rich history when town development decisions are made. Some of the things we've done over the years, we've had professionals survey most of the historic houses in town and write up the research on them. That information is available at the Historical Society and in the public library in the Medfield History section, and anybody can go in and look at it if they have an old house and want to know more about it. We are able, to a degree, to protect historic properties through the demolition delay bylaw. We had a professional prepare a town-wide master plan for preservation about 2000, and we still refer to it, at least I refer to it occasionally, and it's copies in the public library. And about 7 years ago, we got some grants to start the ball rolling on restoring the old section of Vine Lake Cemetery. The work we did with the state grants has been absolutely magnificently carried forward by Rob Gregg and the Vine Lake Preservation Trust and the town DPW. And the commission honored Rob for his work last year with a preservation award like what we're going to give to Bob Borelli this year. Bob is one of Medfield's most prolific builders. And about 2 years ago, he bought the 1811 Fairbanks Chenery Hale House, sometimes known as One Tuna Kanasuki. It's easy for me to say because I've been practicing, but you try it. there are, what, about 15 houses that have Indian names that were given out probably in the, 1890, 1900, thereabouts. This house is at 34 South Street, and it had been the site of Medfield's first straw hat factory. It was in tough shape when Bob bought it.
Yeah.
Although the front house had good bones. After meetings with the Historical Commission and with neighbors, Bob agreed to preserve much of the original house, and he hired a good architect to design 2 additional housing units on the property. I personally think the final result is outstanding. The first house is partway between a restoration and a replica, but it fits the neighborhood perfectly, and it looks great when you drive down South Street. The other 2 units complement the property. They all sold quickly, and right after these, Bob built 2 conjoined houses at 77 South Street, which respected the neighborhood and its history. So I want to give Bob this award. You have 10 minutes to give your speech if you want to.
Oh. A minute.
But this is it. It says Medfield Historical Commission 2013 Preservation Award presented to Robert Borelli for restoration and adaptive reuse of the 1811 Fairbanks Chenery Hale House at 34 South Street, Medfield, Mass. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Historical Committee, Board of Selectmen for this plaque.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
It sure did.
Worked
Really
out a
did.
deal. Special thanks to Charles.
Yep.
He was the architect for the project, and David, who's always a phone call away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thanks so much for coming in, we appreciate it, thank you. Thank you. Action items we've got a vote here to sign our December 10th, 2013 warrant for a special state primary regarding state representative for the 9th Norfolk District in Medfield, which is just precincts 3 and 4, the south side of town.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
And this will be a test for residents of town as to whether they know what precinct they live
There
in
we
or
go.
not,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
only half the town is entitled to vote in this election.
Yeah.
Precincts 3 and 4, and precincts 1 and 2 are represented by Representative Garlick, so they are not allowed to vote in this, because this is to fill a seat vacated by our other representative, Daniel Winslow.
We've got a discussion here. We've received a couple of applications for our Open Space and Recreation Planning Commission. One we've received from town resident Jonathan Hinrichs on Nebo Street in Medfield. And he sent a very, very nice letter in. He's got a great background in what he's been doing and stuff like that. So I don't know if anyone had any comments that or would make a recommendation or anything like that.
I think it looked excellent. I also, I'm not sure what the policy is, but I know Eric O'Brien has a long history of open space recreation, and I just have very high regard of Eric as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how we handle that.
Well, he no longer lives in town, but he does own a business in
Yeah,
town, so
yeah.
I think that probably
There's no legal
qualify,
prohibition.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, I see Eric a lot too, and obviously, he's always very, very interested in what's going on in town, even though he doesn't live here, and it spends a lot of time keeping up to date on stuff. He's always there and involved in a lot of the local charitable activities, so, I mean, I wouldn't have an issue either with, as long as there's no legal issue with that, appointing Eric to that too, and I don't know how you felt about that, Pete.
I'm happy to appoint Eric, especially where he has a business here. I know that we did make a distinction with, I think it was Dr. Hartman on the Lyme Disease Committee. We appointed him ex officio.
Mhm.
But I'd move that we appoint both of them to the Open Space and Recreation Planning Commission.
And I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, we've got our minutes from our October 1st and our 15th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept those? Or any changes?
I would make that motion, and I had one change, which
Okay.
I just need to find them,
All right.
and so I can remember what it was. Oh, yes, it had me reporting that the Medfield Cares About Prevention will move forward with plans to do fundraising, and MCAP does not do fundraising. It's going to do advocacy. So fundraising probably should be replaced with advocacy.
So it's-
And that's on the October 15, page 4.
On the Selectmen report.
Yeah, I just had a
Richard?
couple. On the October 15 one,
Yeah,
it was reported, we were talking about the good neighbor policy, and it said that I also wanted it reported for things inside the school. I never said anything about inside the school. It was more what they were doing
Yeah.
in neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And the other thing was Upham Road, it said that I suggested it be one-way. I never suggested that. I simply asked the chief to look at
Mhm.
some of the concerns because of the cars parking on both sides, and the chief mentioned maybe a possibility of getting the Dwight Derby House or another location that some of the full-time employees at the Upham House maybe could park and
Yeah.
get them off of
Mhm.
Upham Road. And then the
I
discussion.
remember somebody said
well, the
one way, because I
discussion
like the
getting
idea
to
of
the
one
issue
way.
One-way. And then we got all kinds of discussion of other one-way streets, but
Yeah.
I never actually suggested that.
Hmm.
Okay.
Those were the two,
Okay, all
and
right.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye, excellent, good, thank you. Licenses and permits. We've got a request for a one-day one-day wine and malt beverage permits at the center for Saturday, November 30th, Saturday, February 8th, and Saturday, March 29th at the center.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we have a common victular license. We've got an application here from Pedro Laredo, which is at 1 Green Street. Antara, I believe, is the name of his restaurant. It's in Bullitt's Marketplace and stuff where Village Pizza was before.
He still needs to go, I believe he appeared before the planning board,
Yeah.
and they've approved him, I believe, temporarily going forward. He does have some issues that he needs to address with them in terms of the number of parking spaces he has available and some other
Okay.
issues. And I believe he may be coming back to you at some point about some sort of alcoholic beverage license, so he'd have to come back for that.
All right.
So I would recommend that you approve it, but condition it upon his continuing to move forward with other requirements of the Board of Health and
Yeah. And the
I
planning
know.
board.
I actually ate there
Planning department.
recently, so I don't know if I ate illegally or
You
not.
might
but
have, huh?
The
Yeah.
food was very good.
Oh, good.
It was
Excellent.
Peruvian.
Yeah.
He seems
It's-
very agreeable.
he's
and,
done a nice job remodeling. I took a look and it's very
It
attractive.
was very good.
Yeah.
It was very, very good.
What is
Super.
Peruvian food like?
Well, it was good. It was, he has a lot of chicken and beef and
No yaks and llamas?
eggs, and it was very good. And the nice Peruvian music in the background.
Is it
and,
really? Yeah.
It was good.
I thought I heard that it was going to be pizza or something.
Well, he said he was gonna start as pizza, and then he realized there's like 5 pizza places in Medfield.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to get a restaurant that was a relaxed atmosphere,
Yeah.
and he always wanted to bring his home Peruvian food in.
Yep.
And he went with that, so.
One thing that's going to be a little bit confusing is Ankara and Takara. They're very similar. So if you end up in the wrong place,
Place,
instead
yeah.
of,
Very university,
Yes.
yeah.
you get
Yeah.
Japanese food instead of Andean food,
I would move that we
or Peruvian.
That's
give them the common victualer's license.
Second.
subject to. Okay, good. All in favor? All
Yep.
aye. Great, good. Thank you. That's great. We've got under the pending, I know we want to talk about beaver dams, and I know, Michael, someone, or Evelyn has put together our applications for,
Right, actually Nancy Benatti
Oh, did
from
that, okay.
Board of Health worked with Evelyn and myself, and
trapping beavers.
and Richard, you'll be interested in this one. I met with our trapper,
Mhm.
Barry Mandel, and he said that he went all the way up the brook, Vine Brook, all the way up past the Browns property up to around Cypress and whatever,
Mhm.
and there was no evidence currently of beavers in that area.
In that area.
He said all the damage that's been done down by Brook Street is from prior activity, but that he trapped up there, and they moved on. They have not been back. So he's got applications. We're applying to the Board of Health if you go forward with this for
Okay,
3 sites.
okay.
One is the Sawmill Brook up by the old Cronin property,
Yep.
Colonial
That's
Road,
what
that
I
area.
understand.
Yes. And he said there are a couple of dams up there, and they've really dammed it up. And we've been lucky that it hasn't rained a lot lately, and that's helped because the water level is, I think he said, probably about a foot below the top of the dam.
Yep.
So there's potential for a lot of water to be impounded there. The other two are both on the Stop River.
Mhm.
One is between South Street and the Stop River Bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is between Stop River Bridge and Causeway Culvert, Causeway Street Bridge.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what's the first one? From where?
South Street to the Stop River Bridge, or Noon Hill.
Noon Hill.
Noon
Between
Hill.
South,
Okay.
yeah, and Noon Hill.
Bridge,
I mean, yeah.
And then from the Noon Hill Bridge to the
Two.
Causeway.
Yeah,
Okay.
the two sections
Yep.
there, yeah.
There's a setup fee for, one I think was $500, and
Yeah.
the other two were $400. And he said if we go with all three, we'll get the
Quantity
20% discount.
20% discount.
And then there's $150 per beaver.
Yeah.
Now, you can get, even though it's trapping season for beavers, if you look at those permits, there's
Yes.
three things that you can apply for.
Okay.
One is for the use of the conibear traps.
Oh, yeah, yep.
One is for permission to remove the
breach the
dam
dams,
or to
yep.
breach the dam.
Yep.
And the third is
Non-lethal management of water.
non-lethal. Those are the things that they tell me don't work. You know, you put some device that tricks them into thinking water's flowing. You still need approval of the Board of Health for the 10-day permits. You get two 10-day permits to the Board of Health, and beyond that, you have to get a 30-day permit from the state. And the conditions, Nancy gave me a copy of the conditions, and if you want to see micromanagement, you ought to read the things that you have to put in the permit as to why you are asking for an emergency.
So let me, so I know it's trapping season, right? We're into trapping season, but even though we're in trapping season, you still have to apply for a permit in order to trap beavers, is that right? And get it
Yes.
approved by everyone, including the president, I think, it
Yeah,
seems to be.
Conservation Commission for breaching the dam.
Yeah.
Apparently, you don't need Conservation Commission for the conibear traps, but you do need it for
For the
breaching the dam.
dams and stuff like that.
Who do you need for the conibear traps? The Board
Well,
of
the
Health?
Board of Health for the 10 days, and then
Yeah.
beyond that, you need it from the state,
The Board of Health can do two
Two
10
10
days?
10 days.
And then we
and
have to go
then-
to the state next.
And the
yeah.
state can do 30, and that's it, so you get 50 days. Now, Barry said that he doesn't think he'll need the 30 days. He thinks once he starts breaching the dams, the beavers will have to come back to repair the dams,
Ah,
and
that's where
then
he
the
gets
traps
them.
will catch them. So,
Perfect.
And what
Got
is
it.
he suggestion for the use of traps?
conibear traps. So you're applying there for breaching the dam
And
and
the
for the use of the conibear traps.
Okay, good. That's what this application say. Okay, great. Well, that's terrific. Pete, you want to make a motion so we can
I
get
would
this
move that we
moving
go forward with the plan to deal with the beavers as presented.
Yes. I did speak to him, one of you had mentioned, I think it was you, Richard, that there was, someone said there was a dam
Pine
up
Street.
at the end of Pine Street.
Yeah.
He said he had done some work on, lower down on Pine Street, that he thinks may have taken care of the problem up further, but he was gonna look, and he wasn't aware of any problem up near the Dover line on Pine Street.
Before
Said
that,
it was-
the curve there, right?
Oh, it's before the bad curve?
With that
Before the.
brand new houses just before that brook that runs.
Oh, I think that may be where he had done some work for a private party up there.
Okay.
But he was gonna take a look anyway, but he thought that, that had been taken care of.
Well, I
But if
just
it's
think
not,
of
we
being
can do it.
proactive. We had property damage done before, we've had environmental damage to a large extent by Vine Brook, and now I see down by White Street in the Cronin's property. So I will second that.
Good. Yep.
Yeah, in fact, I did have a call from Megan Sullivan last night, who said that the beavers were starting to take down some big trees along the Stop River.
Yeah.
She was concerned that,
Those are really.
that they were starting to, they weren't messing around anymore, they were going after some of the big ones.
Big ones. Yeah.
So-
They do carry bacterial organisms that can affect the water supply, too.
Mm. But this is only a temporary stopgap solution.
Yep.
It's not going to solve the problem. The only way it's going to be solved is by the state on a statewide basis. They've got to face up to the fact that the beaver population is way in excess of safe numbers, and that they have to do something to bring it back to a reasonable level.
Part of this issue is because the people in the state passed the referendum, correct?
The leg hole
That's the
trap.
leg hole trap, yeah.
And that has been a
Yeah.
big issue.
Yes, yeah.
That's what made it so difficult to trap the beavers, and the beavers just exponentially exploded as a result.
Yeah.
So you need another referendum
To undo,
No, I think they could
Does the
address
state
it.
have the ability in the legislature to do that?
They could, if they
Yeah.
wanted to, but it becomes a case of political will.
Yeah.
And I don't think they want to
The
go
leg
back.
hole traps, it wasn't even so much the traps, as they were holding them underwater. They basically, they're mammals, they have to breathe at some point, although they can be underwater for a while. So basically, you're drowning them. So it became an animal cruelty thing, and
Thing,
that's
right.
how it was.
Well, I think some of the other thing too, it was they were chewing off their
Like,
Or maybe
limbs
that's
to get away, so
Sure.
I think that was a
Yeah.
problem. Now, I'm not sure they want to go back to use of leg hole traps. I think there are probably other methods
The
that,
problem is they're very,
will work.
very intelligent animals, so
yes.
trying to come up with some way to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, realistically, we're not gonna get a change coming from the state. So I think we're gonna have to keep doing.
We
these
just keep doing this,
stopgap,
like, that's all we can
efforts
do.
To try to control it.
yep, that's what we
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Great.
Once again, there is no partnership with the state government.
There we go. All righty. Any other updates on the state hospital that you're aware of? No, I know we're gonna be meeting with folks later
I think
anyway.
we'll probably, the committee will update us
Give us
on
on
what
where
they're-
things are going there. Okay, all right.
The Water and Sewer Board, one other bit of information on that is interviewing engineers tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Oh, good.
I believe they're going to do it up here because they want to make one of the engineers wants to do a PowerPoint presentation. But they're going to be interviewing two firms to design the water tower and water mains.
Excellent.
So
That's
if
great.
you
It's very
have
exciting.
nothing to do,
Want to look at water tower designs?
it's 7 o'clock tomorrow
Excellent.
night.
All righty. Selectmen's reports, I guess, are next. Pete, did you want to kick things off?
Sure, thank you. I just want to compliment Ron Griffin on the event that he created for the veterans, and Michelle Doucette for the luminaries in the afternoon on Veterans Day. Both were just very nicely done events. I had my mini town hall on Hearthstone in that neighborhood, and it went very well. It was nice. It was nice to do, and it was the home of Mary McCarthy and Howie Richmond, and they were nice enough to host me. And I think it's a nice. That was my first one that I had been to. I thought it was a nice thing for us to be doing, and I thought the people seemed very appreciative, and so I think it works well.
What were some of the issues, Pete?
Let's see. We talked about stop signs on Rolling Lane at Hearthstone. Apparently, I had never heard this, but Blondine, whose last name I forget now, said that she had moved into the neighborhood originally, 50 years ago, she said, and that Rolling Lane was intended to go all the way down to 109. And I guess it probably would have gone through the Shaws.
There's wetlands there too, yeah.
Oh, but it never did. And so that, apparently Rolling Lane is a very wide street,
Mm-hmm.
and that people tend to think that they have the right of way, but they're coming out of a street, going into it, on the other side of Rolling Lane, it goes into a dead end. And the people on Hearthstone think that they have the right of way, so that they've talked to the chief, and I guess Charlie Glue had said that he had gotten a yield sign put up, but they really wanted a stop sign. There was also a request to have streetlights at the intersections, all through. Well, they wanted it in their neighborhood, but they thought it made sense to have it all through town. I recounted to them the history that Mike keeps telling me about the streetlights in town disappearing when
The light
Proposition
committee,
2.5
yes. You were
came
on
in.
that, weren't you? Yes,
Um,
it goes back to DeSorga's original term.
Let's see, we talked a lot about the state hospital. We talked about how different things happen in town, how changes can be made. I'm trying to remember other specific issues. We talked for a long time. It went for over 2 hours.
How many did you get? How many people were there?
7.
7.
I have the next one, it'll be in January, and that's up
Good.
on Maplewood.
Super.
Last night I went to the Lyme Disease Study Committee, and they've been, their hunt is going great guns at the moment. They've had 21 deers that they've culled already,
That's unbelievable.
Oh,
that's-
not guns.
and that's compared to 29 in each of the last 2 years.
That's unbelievable.
And I think there's another month or so of the hunting season,
Yeah.
although apparently the shotgun season, there's a lot of nuances about this hunting stuff that I don't understand because I'm not a hunter. There were jokes actually about well, and one of the problems that they reported last night, that Barry Mandel actually reported, was that he and Frank Perry had been called to a property on North Street, right at the Dover line, where there was illegal hunting going on. It turned out it was a shared driveway, and there was somebody up in a tree stand right next to a house, basically.
Excellent.
And the person in the tree stand apparently had permission from this guy, Dan Wolf. Dan Wolf runs a company that for money, rents hunters spaces to hunt in the Metro West suburbs. And so he goes around and he gets permission from the
Private landowner?
from the private landowners, and then, and so that, and apparently there was nothing they could do. I mean, Sergeant Ray Burton went up and reported, and what they said is that basically you have to virtually see somebody shooting the arrow. Because somebody can be up in a tree stand, and they can even have a bow, but unless you actually see them then hunting, and then you have to get the environmental police to come and arrest them. So this is another area where it might be helpful to have a town bylaw to make it easier for the police to deal with illegal hunting. That was another one of the things that they mentioned, that there's a tremendous amount of illegal hunting going on in town, more than they thought than in past years.
Mhm.
And that may be partly because there's hunting going on in town.
Yeah.
Although that when they started a couple of years ago, one of the nice things was that they were finding all of these illegal tree stands in the woods because there were so many people in the woods. And the town, and a lot of it was getting cleaned up.
Sure.
Frank and Barry, apparently, my favorite story was that they had staked out a car at Noon Hill that they thought was a hunter, and it turned out to be a guy who goes mountain biking at night. And he came out with a lantern on his head, and it's the only time he can do it, so and they were getting all,
They can hunt on state land, correct?
Yes,
Down
they
by the
can.
Charles River side,
Yeah.
that's.
yeah, on the Sherburne side of town.
Most
Because
of
our
the-
local bylaws don't regulate
Apply.
state land.
Most of that, I understand, though, down by the river is they have blinds and they shoot at birds.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of a shooting up at the birds,
Yeah.
not shooting across.
Sometimes you can tell, but there's so much shooting going on at the firing range up there that it's hard to tell when hunting is going on in our neighborhood.
And it's hard, too. I was out raking leaves this weekend. You could hear guns going, but I think it was from the Westwood Gun Club.
Oh, I think so,
It
yeah.
kind of
Catholics it
echoes
happens
off
on-
Mount Nebo.
Yeah.
Either Saturdays, Sundays, I guess, right?
Yes,
Sundays is a
yeah.
big day for
And
that.
it actually sounds like it's coming from Mount Nebo when it's coming from,
And they might,
The
do
Westwood
they
line.
shoot up at the Sportsman's Club? They might do shooting up there as well.
Yes.
so-
yeah. But
Yeah.
there's also one across the river in Millis, because
Yep.
we had a complaint. And I
Yeah,
I
you gotta
talked to
hear
Eric
that.
Iafolo
Yeah.
that works with us, and he said it was about shooting at night. Woman said her kids couldn't sleep. And he talked to the head of the Sportsman's Club, and he said, we don't shoot at night up there. We don't do anything after dark in terms of shooting. We think it might have come, there's another club across the river, Millis, and it might have
Yeah.
come from there, because they do have, I believe they do have night shooting.
Yeah.
I think Walpole has a range just across from the Westwood Gun Club, across the wetlands, I think, so there's another opportunity for hearing gunshots.
Where is this, down by the southern end of Walpole? Because a lot of the Westwood Gun
It's-
Club
I
is
think
in
it's right
Walpole.
across some oh, well, I understood that there was another gun range in Walpole, near the Westwood Gun Club.
And I think, as we went up there one time when they were talking about putting a sign in, and the way the guy explained it to us was that they shoot from Medfield
The
into
bullets come
Walpole.
down in Walpole.
It's kind of like
Oh.
a valley in between,
All
and
right.
they have
I
targets
thought there
on
was
the other
another one in
side.
Walpole as well, but I don't know that much about it. The town hall was represented at the Medfield Coalition for Public Education by the three of us, Mark and Mike and I and Sarah Raposa. Unfortunately, we brought Sarah along because she was the one that knew all the answers.
The three of us would have
We
been
would've got that.
pathetic.
Oh, I was,
With
yeah,
Sarah, we
no,
would-
I was pathetic. But it was a very nice event that the Medfield Coalition put on. It looked like people were having a lot of fun, and I think that they raised some money, too, for the schools in town, so that was good.
And the center, boy, what a nice place to have events like that. It really works out well.
It
So,
was, yeah.
Nice size there.
And a lot of nice food that
Very
was,
good food.
Yes.
they didn't advertise it as a food event, but there was a ton of food. The Medfield Energy Committee is still looking forward to doing the Green Communities Act, qualifying, have the town qualify for the Green Communities Act. I think there are about 135 or 50 towns now that have qualified out of the 351 in the state. The reason to do it is there's about $100,000 of grant money the first year that you do that. They're also looking at photovoltaic sites still. There was a meeting of the Medfield Cares About Prevention Group, again, the monthly meeting, and that's a work in progress still, still trying to figure out how it's going to work. It's such a new entity that they're still trying to figure out exactly who it is and what it's going to be doing. But it really is going to be focused on assisting parents and the kids in town with substance abuse issues. But the actual specifics of how to do that is still yet to be determined, still in the process. And then the Medfield Foundation had a meeting where it's mainly the Angel Run that's being planned at the moment. And I guess I'll just mention we had the youth outreach worker. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we had the youth outreach worker and the minister from the UCC church come in a couple meetings ago to the Medfield Foundation because the Angel Run, the profits from the Angel Run basically get donated to the UCC church, and between the church and the youth outreach, they decide how to use those monies to assist families in need in Medfield. And what I heard since that time from Dawn Alcott, the youth outreach worker, is that there are actually people in Medfield that are going to bed hungry, which kind of shocked me. I hadn't appreciated that. Apparently, because of the food cupboard having to operate under federal income guidelines, that if you have a job, you may not be able to get food at the food cupboard. And so that there are working poor in town who are not able to get enough food. And so ever since I found that out, I've been trying to figure out how to solve that, but I don't have a clue, unfortunately. I was asking the Lyme disease people last night if we could take some of the venison that they kill, or some of the roadkill, because there are like 30 to 50 deer that get killed by cars every year, and I'm thinking, oh, meat. And I got a quick education that once it gets hit by a car, it's usually pretty messed up.
They have a list,
Yes,
they maintain a list.
Well, but what Barry said is you have to skin it to see if any of the meat is good, because a lot of times the internal organs and things
And if the muscle gets
ruin the meat.
bruised, it dies very quickly, and you can't, it's not suitable. You
Yeah.
have to cut it out.
And there's also, I guess I don't know if it's state law, but there's some regulations that prevent you from donating the meats to the animal shelter, or not the animal shelter,
For
Now,
something.
Pete, does money from the Angel Run go to the outreach worker to try to track down and help some of these people you were talking about?
Don uses it, yes, and it's used between Don and the minister, Phil Bauman. They collaborate and bounce ideas off each other, and they figure out how to use the monies between the two of them. But it's basically a pool of money to assist families in need in Medfield.
And I believe they also, some of their parishioners also contribute separately, so it
Oh,
can be
yeah,
used
no, the
for
church,
that,
I mean, they talked about, there was one family from Eastern Europe where both the parents had cancer and were getting treated for cancer, and their church just stepped up huge, big time,
Yeah.
to tens of thousands of dollars to support this family and help them get through their crisis.
There is a history, and there's a reason why the UCC church is involved. If you go back to the origins of the outreach program, it was based in the UCC church
Oh, was it?
initially, yes, in the basement of the church.
Okay.
And eventually, they asked if they could move it to town hall temporarily. So-
Yeah, there you go. You know
And
how those work.
and the
Well-
town would contribute a small amount, so.
And I think
but
that,
it's
I mean,
worked very well.
the other connection is that the Domachek family are parishioners there, and so that,
Okay,
they, I
yeah.
mean, by creating the Angel Run,
Yep.
and what they quickly discovered was that while they were trying to raise money for the scholarships that were awarded a couple of years ago, they were raising so much more money that they just gave the excess monies to the families in need through the UCC and the youth outreach. So, and that's it.
Okay. Richard?
Couple things. I was able to take part in the tour of the former Medfield State Hospital. Gil Rogers and members of the State Hospital Review Committee were there. I thought they did a real good job. Mike Taylor of the Historic District Commission, John Thompson, Bill Massaro. So I would say we had between 100 and 150 people.
It was a good crowd.
Good turnout, and the one we had previous was maybe a little small, but still around maybe 100, 125 people. So, and I was amazed the number of people that had not been up on the hospital grounds before. So I think that that was very helpful for a lot of people just to get an idea of what the physical grounds
Sure.
look like up there. Sarah was also, Repose was also there, and she handed out a lot of the questionnaires as they're attempting to get feedback of what the citizens of Medfield were looking for up at the hospital. I attended the Highway Garage weekly meeting this past week. It was interesting. They're racing a little bit on time against the weather, because I guess if it's below 32, you can't use the cement, it doesn't cure properly and stuff. So they're kind of racing. They have, I don't know if it's the north or south or east or west wing.
Well, they call it the south wing, but it's the
South.
wing nearest to 27, which I would call the west wing, but
Yeah, I was
sounds
gonna
too
say,
much like the White House, I
White
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
That's coming right along, and they're hoping to be able to kind of bubble that so that they can begin doing work inside.
Yeah, we had two meetings today. We had the regular meeting at 8, and then we had a meeting at 1 o'clock, or 1:30 with the NSTAR people trying to get electrical service to the site, so
Good.
I think we made some progress on that, but
Good.
it is difficult working with them. It's just,
Even with his new guy.
well, he tries, but, it's,
What's the issue now, trying to get the wires in?
well, next week is Thanksgiving week, and a lot of people take time off, and then it's supposed to get cold, and they don't work when the weather's bad, and they only can do so many projects a day, and there's a different division that does this and does that, and it's,
Goes on and on and on.
So it's, I was talking to John Nunnery, and he was saying it's the same thing all over the state, and they had hearing, the architects group met with the co-chair of the Communications Committee in the legislature, and he said they told him if there's one thing you could do, it's get us some help with the utilities and providing service to new construction sites, because it's slowing everything down.
Yeah, I mean, we're not alone either. I know some folks I've talked to that work in the construction in the city of Boston, and it isn't just our little garage. I mean, there's been a number of very, very large, high-rise projects in Boston that get delayed for weeks or months because they're waiting they can't get power. And,
Yeah.
it's, multi-million-dollar projects just grind to a halt. So, for that. So it happens to everyone, no matter how much clout you think you have, or money you think you have, or who you might know. It doesn't seem to work at all.
Talk to Tim Bonfatti, he just rolls his eyes when the subject of you know,
But I know they're a
utility.
little concerned on the north wing of that. They're not sure if they can get enough of that work done before the cold weather sets in or not.
Well, they have to set up cold weather conditions where they have to actually put staging on either side and wrap it in plastic.
Heat it
You know,
while
plastic.
they
But
work.
that's one of the reasons you can't get heat unless you have electricity. Even though the heat isn't provided by electricity, it's propane or whatever,
Yeah.
but you need electricity to get it started, so.
But it's, attending those meetings, and I know you've attended some of those as well, Mark, it's amazing what work the highway has done and the amount of money that they have saved. And I was thinking as I went to the Veterans Breakfast that Ron Griffin was in charge of, and then the luminary and the ceremony that took place that night, how important it is to kind of give thanks. So I'm thinking, maybe we can put our heads together. I'd like to see if we could maybe put off some kind of a breakfast for our highway department workers, maybe the three of us in some capacity, and maybe we can tap into Memo with the Lions a little bit.
Mhm.
You're an expert with the the pancake flipping.
Oh, I do.
If recruit
Oh, I
you.
do meatballs and sausage with pepper and onions for the highway Christmas holiday party.
Well, something.
I
I
do
just
that.
think, in particular, because of the work they've done down there, and then to extend that, maybe between now and town meeting, something for our safety personnel, the highway, and, the police and fire, and then the town hall staff as well. That's one of our goals, to put, to try to, show that appreciation and give a little moral support. So maybe there's something the three of us can kind of put our heads together and come up with a little breakfast or lunch or something.
You're gonna do the Belgian waffles?
I'll do Belgian waffles. I'm very good at that. It's an old family recipe we brought over from the old country. So I'd like to kind of pursue that a little
That
bit.
sounds like a very nice idea.
And I met this morning with a good side of the utilities. There is some positive things. They've actually put together
All righty.
very impressive.
Colors.
Yes, colors, the red, this is Comcast, and the red are completed poles.
Excellent. And it's a lot of red, that's good.
The yellow is ready to go,
Okay.
and the white is, there's difficulty cutting, splicing with their wires. But they said that Medfield is the #1 priority. They will guarantee, Comcast, they will have everything off the poles before the end of the year.
Very exciting. That's good.
And then Verizon follows,
Okay.
and Verizon said that they will have everything off no later than the 1st of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then NSTAR comes in, because they own the poles,
And then they
and will
can,
actually pull them out.
good.
It's kind of impressive.
It's very nice. Look at this. Huh?
And the fire department had one pole, and the chief said he'd get that off, he'd take care of that.
Right, and they picked up, and they actually labeled every single pole we had. We
Yeah.
have a whole chart of what's there, who's
Oh,
the
yeah,
work
it's
on
on
it,
and stuff like that, yeah.
who has
Oh,
responsibility.
yeah, that's very good.
So I'm
Close enough.
pleased
It's just a
on-
typo. Yeah.
Did they update the list? The last meeting we had, different utilities had different lists of what poles
Yeah,
Rose
that's
County.
updated. This
It's
is now the
updated.
official list that
Official
NSTAR,
list.
Verizon, and Comcast
All
all
agree.
agreed
Or
to,
use.
as well as our fire chief. And Comcast actually went to every single pole and developed this,
Yep.
this little plan with that, so that they actually physically went to the pole to check it.
Maybe this would be a good test case for them to start doing it in other communities.
Yes, and they said in the district that, that we're in with Comcast, he said they have 1,000 double poles removed. Medfield, we're on the top of the list. They're starting with Medfield. We're gonna do ours first, and then they're gonna go to the other towns.
Mm.
So that was kind of positive. Can we get, if I give Evelyn a letter to Richard Hangen, who's on 22 Farm Street. He's a civil engineer. He's the one that met with myself and Chief Meany down at CVS and made some suggestions. And also a thank you note to the store manager, the regional manager, and the civil engineer of CVS. I sat down there the other day. system seems to work much,
Mhm.
much better.
It is a huge improvement.
People
Just
Thank
have it a
you.
little wider.
Thank you for
Yeah.
making that happen, Richard.
So I'll get 2 thank you notes
Sure.
to this Richard Hangett and then to the CVS people. I've received a number of calls, and maybe Mark, you can help me, you're more the expert on this, with the town bylaws. I got 2 calls that, saying that people were blowing leaves out of the yard and they're blowing them right into the street and they were just leaving them there. Do we have a bylaw that says they
Yes,
cannot
I believe we do. I
put
think there is
leave leaves in the street?
I think we do. I know we do for snow. I thought we did with leaves too.
I don't remember. I know we have one in Franklin. That's all I can say. I don't remember
And take a look, maybe we can find it.
being the police.
The people that called were very upset. They said they spent all day Saturday removing the leaves from their yard and taking them down to the landfill, and this person was just blowing them right into the street.
I was very upset with a god of wind. I spent 10 hours out there this weekend.
Yeah.
When I went out the next day, it looked like I hadn't done a
Yeah.
thing.
It looks like you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I think I think there's some landscapers that come around with a vacuum and will vacuum them if you have them at the curb like that.
Yeah, but these people didn't have a
They
landscape.
weren't planning, yeah.
Somebody downstairs told me they had a call from somebody that had moved here recently and wanted to know when the town was going to come by
Oh,
and pick
that's
up their
great.
leaves.
Sometimes do that.
I know,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, next week, just hang in there, we'll be right back.
Well, if I can find out on the leaves, and maybe just residents that are listening, if, we're not supposed to have all the leaves being blown into the street. It's kind of the responsibility of the individual homeowner to take care of
Take care of
their
their
own
own
property.
leaves, yeah.
Because they just
Same
blow
with
into someone
snow in
else's
winter.
yard.
I know
Yeah.
That becomes an issue sometimes. People just
Yeah.
plow into the street and leave
And,
it there.
and I think for seniors, isn't the Council on Aging running a program to assist the seniors with their leaves?
Well, there's a
Yeah.
number, there's, I think St. Edwards,
Snow.
and I think the high school kids do some things. There is or is not, Mark?
It's just snow.
That,
There is not.
that might be something we might want to look at then,
Yeah.
with leaves.
Yeah, again, that's something we, at the request of the highway superintendent in Franklin, we inserted that. In that.
Are they able to enforce it? I mean, that's a classic case where if you take it down to the Norfolk County or the Rentham courts, they'll look at you like you.
Well, there must be something
holes
about
in your head.
obstructing traffic in the road or
Book 'em.
something if the
Book 'em.
leaves are that.
Yep.
They tell you they've got serious, other towns have serious crimes. Don't waste their time. They don't have enough help to handle the crimes, the serious crimes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you've said, there's the reaction down there, that they don't believe that they're enforced. It's a waste of their resources to enforce those.
Mhm.
And then I have a call, and this another, I think we have a bio on this. The person was concerned, and this is the so-called pooper scooper law. The person, this was down in the Lower Mason Road area, the people are not picking up after their dogs in the street and in the lawns. That's covered by bylaw, correct?
Mm.
So
That is,
that's something they should just notify the police, or?
that's a matter of enforcement.
Pick them up.
Who is our, is the police the enforcer of things like the snow and the pooper scooper? Is that, who's the enforcer of our bylaws?
They're all designated for each bylaw. Generally, the police are, and sometimes additional to the police.
They might get public works or the animal control officer. Or,
And this
you know,
pooper scooper
yeah.
law, is that police?
It's probably animal control and police, I would think.
And again, just to remind people, they have a responsibility if you're walking your dog to make sure you pick up after your
And
dog.
95% of people are fine.
Right,
It's always the other 5% you deal with it.
I'd say it's just the police.
it's the police. And is there a bylaw about not parking on the street after November 15th or something?
December 1st, I think it is, or maybe, well, it could be November. Yeah, there is. Overnight parking, not during the
Overnight.
daytime, just
Oh,
overnight.
it's just overnight?
Yeah.
Okay, so during the day, they can
Sure.
park, unless the sign says otherwise?
yeah.
Okay. And then I found it very interesting, I don't know if you saw this article, it was in this week's Boston Globe, but maybe like copies going to the planning board, maybe downtown study, and maybe the economic development. But it was talking about reviving downtowns, and it says that restaurants are seen as a key to drawing people and businesses. And I'll just read a couple of sections. It says in Wellesley and Natick, it says town officials changed the rules so that small restaurants can apply for wine, beer, and other alcohol. Marlboro started allowing restaurants to expand their seating into public sidewalks. It says, as communities try to keep downtowns vital in the still stagnant economy, local officials are increasingly turning to restaurants as a way to bring money and people into commercial districts. In this day and age, restaurants are becoming a critical component of driving retail business. And what was interesting was, it says that there's a bill before the legislature to give communities power to grant additional licenses to restaurants or taverns. We're probably...
We have plenty, yeah.
Right.
You know,
But it says, as brick and mortar stores struggle to compete with the online operations, everything's so much internet now, your bookstores and all these other shops, restaurants are becoming more important to keeping downtowns alive, said Richard Lehman, urban revival consultant based in Washington, D.C. Personally, I don't see how it's possible in the modern retail environment where more and more is shifting to the internet that it's possible to bring back commercial districts without focusing on eating. And what was interesting is Natick dropped their parking requirements for restaurants and retail stores. They still must provide parking spaces for employees, but not the customers. And it said, when you have an historic downtown that was developed before automobiles were conceived of, property boundaries didn't have enough additional land area with which to accommodate contemporary parking requirements. And they've actually lifted that. And the town manager out of Arlington, you may know him, Adam
Chapdelaine.
He ended by saying that restaurants are actually able to turn neighborhoods around. They become destinations. So I thought this was kind of interesting.
Well, if you look at the number of restaurants that have added outdoor seating areas in Medfield in the last couple of years, it's amazing. You've got, they're proposing to put some outdoor seating at Roach Brothers. You've got Starbucks has got it. Dunkin' Donuts has got it. Zebras has it.
Yeah.
You've got, they have a couple of outdoor tables at
Go Fresh.
Honey's or Noon Hill has it,
yeah.
yeah. So that we have an awful lot of seating that's been added, so it is true, it does.
And we did create a downtown parking overlay district years ago to accommodate the fact it was stated that a lot of the properties in the downtown don't have, in some cases, any space on premises to provide for parking.
That's what I always felt bad for Monk's Block. You have that, a massive building, you have that massive hall up there that really cannot be used. But
Well, that's a fire safety issue too, as well as,
It's a second exit
The other
for them.
The other thing I thought was interesting, Richard, was, I don't know if you got Rob Gregg's newsletter from the cemetery about the number of tourists that come to Medfield to visit. You know, there was this summer they had somebody from Washington State, somebody from Utah, and somebody from California. And they mentioned, somebody mentioned in an email that they had, when they left the cemetery, they went to Dunkin' Donuts to eat lunch. And so, you know, that is another potential source of bringing people.
we get a lot at the historical side of people doing genealogy.
Yes, yeah.
Growing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And because Medfield's such an old town, a lot of people trace their roots back here. We
Yes.
get a lot of people that come from all over the country.
Yeah.
And you're right, once they're here, they're gonna stop, they're gonna eat here, they're gonna maybe pick up a book at the bookstore or something else as they go by.
Yeah.
The Downtown Study Committee actually had the town planner from Norwood and Westwood come in to talk to them about what they had done. And the Norwood town planner really focused on the restaurants. That was their whole strategy, was to increase the number of liquor licenses and increase the number of the restaurants in the downtown. And for them, it seemed to work.
Yeah.
And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, just on my walks, and I think these are the last three, and we get these complete, I think we'll have every single street sign up in Medfield.
Until the next college season.
Right.
Yeah, and then they'll disappear. If maybe you could just drop to Ken, we're missing the School Street sign at White Street. We're missing the Valley Road sign at the intersection of Birch. And we're missing the Lee Road sign at the intersection of Stagecoach. And that is all, Mr. Chairman.
So I was just looking at this poll thing, and it looks like Bridge Street's the winner with like 29 of the polls are on Bridge Street, the double polls. So they're like-
Fairview is close as
Close,
his
yeah.
name.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
Well, they did a lot of work a couple of years ago down on Bridge Street, and that's why I think he has so many poles.
yeah.
There were a lot of tree trimming and redoing wires and putting
Yeah.
protective
But I
things
know
over them, yeah.
you've had issues, but the three people of each of the utilities have been very, very cooperative
Yeah.
on this, as far as the double poles go.
Yeah, Jack Lopes from NSTAR has
He's
been a
been
big
great.
help. Yeah, he's really coordinated and been very helpful.
So just a couple things to follow up to in recognition to the, they did have on Saturday, November 9th, was a fall leaf cleanup day that was coordinated by, between the Lions, the Medfield High School Community Teens, and St. Edward's Church. So they did, I think there's 14 houses that we got to and stuff, and we were able to clean up the leaves on one day. Saturday was a really, really nice day. And I worked with three really nice young men from St. Edward's. We worked on a house on Adams Street. And boy, kids, it's always great working with kids, you know what I mean? Because they're really, they're always, it's terrific, you know. First of all, the youngsters, they have a lot of energy, so they just go whipping around with the leaves. So they get things done twice as quick as what you could do. But three very, very nice young men that helped me out and did most of the heavy work there. And obviously, she was very appreciative. She has a huge yard, and obviously could never get to it herself and stuff like that. So this is really kind of a nice help. So it's a nice thing. Coordination that gets done between, like I said, between the Lions and St. Edward's. John Kerry coordinated this year for the Lions, St. Edward's, and community teens. So we had a lot of kids help out. So it was really kind of a nice thing, and it goes quick. You know, I think we did her yard in like not even 3 hours and stuff. So you can really roll when you get 4 people obviously working together on stuff. And we had last Thursday night was the monthly meeting for Memo, dinner meeting over at Jing's Garden. They rotate through different restaurants in town. But the featured speaker was our own Scott McDermott, the town moderator, was there. And so it was very, very nice. Scott chatted a lot talked about change, the impact of change on the small business person, and why they have to embrace change and work with that. Scott is a professor at Boston College in the School of Management. So he got right into his teaching mode right away and started teaching us. But it was very well received. Everyone stayed a long time afterwards and asked Scott a lot of questions. So it really went over well. It was a very, very nice evening there. And like I said, we had a couple of nice nights out, as we had mentioned there. With the trivia night was a lot of fun. Like I said, they must have made a good bit of money, I would think, for the coalition and stuff. I would think, 'cause the
Well,
place
they have
was packed.
56 teams or
isn't it?
54 teams,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't think you could have really fit too many more people in that room, right? I think that was just about it, I think, capacity-wise. Maybe a couple more tables, I think, but otherwise, I think that worked out pretty nicely. And the Veterans Day thing was terrific, too, on the 11th and stuff. Okay, where do we go? On to informational stuff. Let's see what we've got here on our agenda here. We talked about, Michael's working with the Warrant Committee this Saturday, so that's great for a training session, annual training session. It looks like the Medfield State Hospital Visioning Subcommittee is requesting the Selectmen to assign a representative to attend their Thursday, December 12th meeting at 2 p.m. at Town Hall. So, it doesn't matter to me, would someone like to
Let me
work
just
with
check,
us?
that's the 12th?
Yeah.
I'm generally not around town in the middle of the day like that.
I'm around.
Good, so if would you like to do that, Richard? That'd be great. Good, thank you very much for volunteering. That's all.
There is going to be another community-wide visioning session at the center in January.
Something like that, on a Saturday or something like that.
It's the
Yeah.
11th, maybe?
Yeah.
I think,
So that'd be
yeah.
great, good, yep. We had
So,
copy of Senator Timley's letter, right, you saw that, right? Yeah, Congressman Kennedy, yep. seen it
Yeah, that was a
too.
very good letter, I
Yeah.
thought, from Senator Timothy. There's a problem now that the IRS went over to Dover and spent about a week over there and cited them to different violations. So as a result now, we're having to put all our senior tax work-off programs, which in the past have been handled as a reduction in property taxes. That's the way the program was set up. the treasurer collector feels now to stay out of trouble with the IRS, she has to issue paychecks. So instead of, and that's going to require some sort of an appropriation, because we've been able to handle it, the assessors have been able to handle it through their overlay accounts.
Mhm.
But you can't write a payroll check to, and charge it to an overlay account. So there'll have to be some sort of an appropriation made. They'll probably have to do a reserve fund transfer for the current year.
Yeah.
But, you know, here's billions of dollars when you see these fines and all the money that these banks are making, that nobody is, there are no consequences to it.
Yep.
And then you get a $500
Nickel and dime.
nickel and dime.
Right, and you gotta make
They're
sure you
chasing that
report on
down.
your taxes, right?
And,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
probably, any tax savings
Yeah,
is probably going to be way outweighed by the cost of policing.
oh, sure, definitely.
The other reason I think they're doing it is this thing with the Social Security, where they're trying to stop people from collecting on their spouse's Social Security. Because anybody, the other thing we have to do now, in addition to writing a payroll check,
Yeah.
we have to take out 7.5% of their salary
Oh,
and put it into the SMART program, the deferred compensation.
oh, like you do with us, yeah, and then,
Yes,
yeah.
but the IRS now considers that a qualified pension plan. If you don't have another pension plan,
Yeah,
and it's costs some of our employees, part-time employees, a considerable amount of money.
Did Kennedy's office ever get back to you on that?
Yes, yeah, they did. They got back to Tony and couldn't do anything. They said those are the, you know, they looked into it, but that's, the IRS has the right to, or Social Security has the right to do it.
So they had to come up with large sums of money in a short period of time?
They're still working out some sort of a payment schedule with them,
Wow.
so. But that doesn't seem fair either. If,
No,
you
not
know,
at
if
all.
a full-time employee puts money into a deferred comp plan, it's not considered a qualified pension plan. But if a
Wow.
part-time employee who's mandated to put the money in, that's considered a qualified pension plan, same program. It's again chasing the wrong people, I think.
yeah, as usual.
Mike,
Yeah.
when the assessors were here and we talked about the tax work-off program for the seniors, and it's at $500, and I was suggesting that we try to get it up to 1,000. They mentioned the issue with the overlay account, and there was only so much money. If we're going to actually budget this, I would encourage the town to think about budgeting it at $1,000, because I think that really, if we spent, the more that we can spend on the seniors to keep them in town, the better off the town will be in the long run.
It's a good program, but, you know, they have, 65 slots, so you're talking about $65,000 appropriation, so it gets to be quite a chunk of money.
I think it's short money when because if one of those houses turns over, you're going to have, if you have one school child, you've got a $13,000 a year expense. If you have two school children, you have a $26,000 expense. I think that we should be spending a little money to try to keep these seniors in town.
I agree, but, you know, the money has to come from someplace, and
It comes
usually
from
it's
the
out
rest
of
of
some
us.
other program,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whose budget would that be under if you did that?
It'd probably be a special article,
It's a special article.
I think, you know, I really thought too much about it yet.
We'll
but
just, think
probably,
about it
yeah.
and see if it's, and then we can talk about it later, maybe as a policy matter, whether
Yeah.
the town really wants to do that, but
Yeah, it might be
I would-
something you want to go to gradually, you know, go to 600 and go to 1 year and 700 the following year, just do it gradually rather than a 1-year slug, so.
Anything else from the informational thing?
There is this package which you have a copy of, it's quite a tome. This is what the accountant's been working on since July 1st. And this is a complete financial statement of what the town did in fiscal 13.
Excellent.
And it includes a calculation, what she submitted to the state for approval as a free cash level, which came out very good this year. It's about $2.6 million.
We know now what the tax rate
We're meeting the Stan Bergeron, Georgia, the treasurer collector, the assessor, the town accountant, Joe Rashudo, myself, and Chris. We'll be meeting Monday with Kathy Reed from the Bureau of Accounts to go over the tax rate. And then she will take that information back, review it, and within a day or two, approve it. Now, next Tuesday, you have the classification hearing that the Board of Assessors have scheduled, where you have to vote to have a public hearing and vote whether to classify property, which is kind of a waste of time. We've never classified it and probably never will.
Oh, yeah, well, we just had a single class.
But you have to have that hearing, and then you will have to go into a computer, and we have passwords for you to get in, and you actually have to sign that you have conducted the hearing, you have voted not to classify or to classify everything at one. And if you did that before the meeting, the tax rate, before the public hearing, the tax rate would be rejected. You have to do it. They actually time what time you did. If the hearing was at 7:15 and you signed it at 7,
Yeah.
they would reject the tax rate. You have to sign it after 7:15. So I'll drag you in my office and sit you down and make you, it's electronic signature that you do. You just check it off, so. But it should be set, they want to get the bills out early because you get a certain number of people that like to pay them
Mhm.
before December 31st. Normally, we're not required to have them out till December 31st. And some people don't like getting a tax bill the week before Christmas, but other people want it, so we send them out, we try to accommodate.
True, I haven't had money.
It, not as much as it used to be, not with interest rates what they are, but it, you know, but it helps.
All right, so,
And that other program, I don't know, we just got notice of it, that New Life Home Refurnishing.
okay.
If anybody has furniture, rather than take it to the
Yep.
dump, or as Evelyn reminded me, the swap area is closed for the
Closed.
winter now, but if anybody has furniture or
Yeah.
usable household items, they can drop them off at 108 Adams Street.
Yep.
And they'll be
106 Adams.
recycled.
I think this is a great.
106,
idea.
okay. Better check my glasses.
Yep.
And it's called what? New Life Home Refurnishing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All righty.
And is this like a one-time thing, or is this, will this stay?
I think they're getting space. Somebody's donated space to them. Is it McCready?
No, Mark Green.
Mark Green, okay, has
Yeah.
donated space
Should
to
this be
them.
something permanent
Permanent.
year-round?
If it works out, I suppose it
Right.
depends on how well
Yeah.
it succeeds. So.
All right, we need to go move into. Yep, here we go. This one right here. All right, so I have to
have to
go
make a
through
declaration.
and then Pete's got to do the, yeah. All right, so, and we've got two things to cover, okay. So the Medfield Board of Selectmen needs to meet in executive session for the following two purposes. To discuss the acquisition of the Kenny property and threatened litigation,
Which relates to the Kenny property.
which relates to the Kenny property, yes, and also to meet jointly with the Medfield State Hospital Negotiation Committee for the purpose of discussion of negotiations for the proposed purchase of the state hospital property. And the open session will not reconvene at the conclusion of this executive session.
You have to make a declaration that a public discussion would prejudice the town's position.
Okay, and that the public discussion would prejudice the town's position in both of these issues. Okay, so then you've got a motion, of course, that's only just for
I
any
move that
property.
the Board of Selectmen go into executive session for the following purposes: to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property,
No, that's the
land
one, yeah. You
of
gotta do-
Kenny.
Yeah,
consisting of, I'm sorry, what?
yeah, I think we've got to just kind of, yeah, that's like an old motion. I mean, that's the verbiage, but the details aren't the same, so I just saved that for.
So land of Kenny, that's
Yeah,
sufficient.
yeah. Yeah.
And for purposes of discussing negotiations of the proposed purchase of the state hospital property, and to not reconvene in public open session. Mr. DeSorga,
Aye.
well, do we need a motion first,
I
probably?
thought that was.
That was the motion. We need a second.
I second.
Mr. DeSorga
Aye.
and Mr. Fisher?
Aye,
Mr. Peterson, yep.
excellent.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.